Hey there, cannabis enthusiasts. Are you wondering where the real cannabis community is hiding? Well, stop rolling your eyes and start rolling something better, because the Bite Me Cannabis Club is here, and it's what you've been looking for. You'll get access to a vibrant, private community where cannabis lovers like you connect, learn, and create together. Whether you're a seasoned connoisseur or just starting your green journey, we've got you covered. Think exclusive content, workshops, weekly events, and a space where you can geek out on your favorite cultivar and get answers about your latest batch of edibles without judgment. Plus, there's fun leaderboards, community challenges, and even a special badge to show you're part of the crew. And here's the best part. Joining is as easy as eating an edible. Go to joinbiteme.com to learn more and join the community today. Trust me, your future self will thank you. Bite Me Cannabis Club, where cannabis lovers connect, learn, and create together. Welcome, friends, to episode 290. Can you believe it? And today we're doing high-protein pancakes. Welcome to Bite Me, the show about edibles, where I help you take control of your high life. I'm your host and certified ganger, Margaret, and I love helping cooks make safe and effective edibles at home. I'm so glad you're here. And welcome, my friends, back to Bite Me, the podcast that explores the intersection of food culture and cannabis, helping cooks make great edibles at home. I am so glad you're here to join me for another wonderful episode of food and cannabis melded together. If you're tuning in for the first time, please let me know where you're listening from. You can send me a fan mail right inside your podcast platform. And if you've been sticking around for a while, I really do appreciate you, because otherwise I'd be talking to myself. Something I've mentioned many times before on this show. And today we are diving into the world of high-protein pancakes. And I'll get into that in a second. Please do let me know, like I said, where you're listening from. And if you have a favorite episode, I would love to hear it. Now, before we get into the high-protein pancakes, I thought I would do a little fun trivia question, because why not? I have this deck of cards here that I'm using, Stoner Trivia, Race to 420, and I'm randomly choosing a card out of the deck. And today, the question is a knowledge question. What state has the most pot smokers in the U.S.? Ooh, this might be up for debate, but the answers that they give, potential answers: Oregon, Washington, Alaska. Interesting that they did have California on that list. I don't know what the date is of these questions. Copyright 2019, so perhaps it's a little out of date. You'll have to let me know if you agree with the answer. What state has the most pot smokers in the U.S.? Oregon, Washington, or Alaska? And if you answered Alaska, you would be correct. Congratulations on your pot knowledge. Very interesting that they also didn't have states like California or Colorado. I wonder if that's changed since these cards were printed. So let's get into today's recipe, because why not? We'll just get right into it. Why protein pancakes? Recently, I have done recipes such as the wonderful chicken carnitas tacos, as the recipe was gifted to me from Adam of Your Canna Chef. I've also done curry ketchup from the Willie and Annie Nelson's Cannabis Cookbook, which was fantastic. I've actually been eating quite a bit of curry ketchup lately. I just finished it off a couple days ago. And I can't really think any further back than that without actually having to look it up. But it just seems like these high-protein pancakes are not really on any kind of theme, and that would be correct. So why protein pancakes? I don't know about you, but I love a good pancake stack. But I don't eat them too often, because traditional pancakes, while they are delicious, are pretty carb heavy, and they really do leave me feeling sluggish. And this is something I tend to eat on the weekends, where, you have a little bit more time, you're not having to rush off to work or anything like that. The last thing I want to do is eat a delicious stack of pancakes and feel like I have to have a nap before I get anything else. I shouldn't say done, but like get out of the house, run some errands, see friends, any of those things. Recently, I have been experimenting with protein pancakes, and really for no other reason than the fact that Sunday morning would roll around, and Sunday morning, I love a slow Sunday morning. and I put on a podcast and I'll find a protein pancake recipe because most other days of the week, I drink a smoothie in the morning for breakfast. It has protein in it because I'm trying to get that protein content up or protein intake up, which I find very difficult to do. But it is just how I like to start my mornings. I have this protein shake with, some fruits and vegetables in it as well, and the creatine and some other things. And it's really good. It tastes good. It keeps me full for a long time. I'm getting a lot of protein. On Sunday mornings, when I had this extra time, I have the house to myself. It's, a slower morning. The last few weeks, I've been playing around with making protein pancakes because I wanted pancakes, but I didn't want the sluggishness. And I also didn't want to miss out on that protein intake that I was getting with the smoothie. So I started looking up some of these recipes. Now, of course, infusing them with cannabis takes them to the next level, and it's a great way to get your cannabinoids in while enjoying a nice, hearty Sunday morning meal or whenever you happen to eat them in your house. And the recipe that I finally settled on turned out really good in terms of texture and taste, which was important to me because I found some recipes. There's a few, obviously, if you look up high protein pancakes online, you'll find all kinds of them, but some of them just didn't have that same texture and consistency as a regular pancake. And I wanted to find something as close to the real thing as possible because they are a little bit different. They do taste a little bit different than a traditional pancake. So for the one that I found, essentially you do need quite a few ingredients, but they're all easy ingredients that most people have in their cupboard, with the exception of maybe the protein powder, if you're not someone who's already consuming protein powder. But it calls for rolled oats, which you're going to blend into a flour. So basically you need like oat flour. Maybe you have that on hand already. But if you don't, you can just blend that up in your blender for like 30 seconds and voila, oat flour. So there's not really a need to go out and buy it separately. You need vanilla protein powder. Coconut flour, it only calls for a tablespoon. It just so happened that I had cocoa or coconut flour in my cupboard because I have a variety of flours in my cupboard actually from doing a lot of baking over the years. So I just happen to have some, but I'm sure if you had to substitute something else, it would probably work. Similarly, you're only needing a tablespoon. So, probably regular flour would also work if that's all you have on hand. You need baking powder, cinnamon, salt, half a medium ripe banana. So these are high protein banana pancakes. That banana did shine through. An egg and some milk, just a quarter cup. So you just need a little bit. Now I did find other recipes that called for yogurt instead of milk. Quite a few of them call for something like yogurt, but I don't tend to buy yogurt very often. Sometimes I make it here and there, but I don't tend to buy it. And my dad, with whom I live, if you didn't already know, a man in his 90s, loves milk. Yes. So, of course, I went for the milk because there's always some in the fridge. He loves nothing better than sitting down with a glass of cold milk. That is not a habit we share. Oftentimes, if I'm at home and I've made dinner, he'll say, "Do you want dessert?" And a lot of times that dessert might be just strawberries. And he always asks me, even though every time I say no, "Would you like milk on your strawberries?" Now, if it was like a completely full fat, like full heavy cream, maybe the answer would be different, but I'm just not much of a milk drinker. So those are the ingredients that you will need for this recipe. Nothing particularly difficult to find, which is what I loved about it as well, because when I decided to make this recipe one Sunday, it's not like I went out and made sure I had the stuff ahead of time. I just did happen to have everything on hand. And of course, once you're done, you're going to top it with maple syrup, bananas, berries, chocolate chips, nut butters, whatever it is that you enjoy. I've also seen people put jam on their pancakes instead of maple syrup. I always put butter. And for this particular instance, this is where you're going to infuse your pancakes, which is another reason why I like doing pancakes as an infused meal, because if you're eating them with somebody who doesn't want to be dosed, then it's very easy not to dose them. So the actual recipe itself doesn't have the cannabis in it. Just so we're clear. You could, if you wanted to be extra, you could infuse the milk and use that in the pancakes if you so chose, but that seems like a lot of extra work when you can use an infused pad of butter, or an infused syrup for these pancakes, which is the direction I would go. Because like I said, if you're eating this with people and they don't want to be dosed, it's super easy to not just have regular maple syrup or regular butter on hand as well. I have done pancakes for this show quite some time ago. I should have looked up before I started recording when that was. And I think that's what I did for those as well. It was a traditional flour pancake, make you fall asleep recipe. If I was smart, I would say that you don't need to infuse the pancakes themselves, but the toppings that you put on them. So essentially, how do you make pancakes? Well, if you don't already know, you mix your dry ingredients together, and then in another bowl, you mix your wet ingredients together. In this case, you're mashing the banana first, and then you add all the rest of the wet ingredients and you just mix them all together. And then you combine the wet and dry ingredients. I usually like to mix them finally in a bowl that has a bit of a spout on them, so it's easier to dispense into the pan when you're ready to actually make the pancakes. These pancakes turned out on the drier side. If you find that the batter is too thick, you can always add a little bit extra milk if you need to. And you're going to heat your skillet over medium-low heat on your stove. I sprayed my pan with some cooking spray, and then you just pour the batter into the pan, cook them for a couple minutes, flip them another minute or so. You know, you've made pancakes before. Who hasn't made pancakes before? And that's it. That's why I also like it. So I don't have to wait forever. These came together pretty quickly, so I didn't have to wait forever to get really what I was looking for was a fix of infused maple syrup, because I love maple syrup, and I've been really not finding excuses to eat it because I've been trying to maybe rein in the sweet tooth a little bit. I have been known from time to time to take a swig of maple syrup right out of the jug. I don't do that very often, but if I'm just being honest here, that's all. Maybe you've done something similar. And what I also ended up doing is I would cook a couple pancakes. I know this is maybe not super efficient, but I was eating them by myself. Cook a couple pancakes. They're pretty small. And it made about 5 pancakes, I think, in the end, which was the perfect amount. And because they're not really flour heavy, they don't make you feel sluggish. And that's what I really enjoyed about them. So I would cook a couple of pancakes and then take the pan off the heat and then enjoy them while they were still hot, and then cook up another couple. So that's how I did it. Of course, how I've often done them before is I've preheated the oven on a lower temperature and then just kept them warm on a plate in the oven until they were ready to be consumed by all who was consuming pancakes. But I was like, why wait? Why do I need to wait? You are going to wait until there's a few little bubbles on those pancakes before you flip them, but that's just generally how pancakes are made. The recipe in question did say that you wouldn't see as many bubbles as you would in a regular pancake, and that was accurate, but these were really easy to make. Once you're all done, you just give it the pat of infused butter or the drizzle of infused maple syrup, if that's the route that you're going. Or, of course, you can combine the two if you have a higher tolerance or that's what you want to do. There's, of course, different ways you can infuse these. I think that's the easiest way to do it. You could also add fresh berries along with it. They do have the banana flavors. Just keep that in mind, but things like bananas and raspberries, for instance, would pair really nicely together, or blueberries or whatever. I didn't do that. If I had them on hand, I probably would have. Now, let's talk dosing for a second. Of course, the potency is going to depend on how strong your infusion is. And if you're new to edibles or you're unsure about your dose, start with less is more. I mean, you probably hear that over and over and over again, and there is a reason for that, because despite all the warnings, all the cannabis cookbooks that I've ever picked up or ever read always have some anecdotal story about how somebody consumed edibles and didn't start with a low dose, or had that these edibles ain't shit experience or moment and then ate more when they really shouldn't have. If you are uncertain, then start with a lower dose. Hopefully you're using a topping that has been dosed already and you have like a general idea. You can start with that pat of butter, knowing how strong it is, and then go from there. And then, of course, if you want more pancakes, you can always use non-infused butter as well. And that's really it. I mean, pancakes are delicious, but I've really been enjoying making these on Sunday mornings when I have the house to myself and it's nice and quiet and I'm listening to some music or a podcast and I can look out the window and see the birds flitting about, or potentially the squirrels trying to get into the bird feeder. And it's just such a relaxed way to start a Sunday morning. And yet you're still getting in that protein. So this is for some of you athletes out there as well. And if you haven't heard that episode yet with Dr. Whitney Algo, where she talks about cannabis and exercise, check that one out while you're making your pancakes. pancakes, and then you get a double dose of information. So to recap, if you don't have protein powder on hand, because it's not really something that you use, you can go to the store, and instead of having to buy an entire jug, they often come in smaller sizes as well, but sometimes you can find like individual servings or something like that in the stores. I haven't really looked at them in a while, but I've seen them before. So if you're traveling, for instance, and you just want to bring like a serving or two with you, then you could always pick something like that up. You are going to make these pancakes following the recipe, and then you're going to infuse them by changing up the toppings. If you have a pancake recipe that you love and you'd like me to try, let me know. Just to give you an idea of what is coming up, I have an interview coming up with Vanessa Lavorato and with Michael de Villiers. I will have to double check if I'm saying his name correctly. I'm excited about that. And of course, there's lots of fun things happening in the Bite Me Cannabis Club. So if you're interested, check it out. I do have a challenge right now for the month of March where you can try making sour yuzu drops. They're actually quite easy, and yet I've failed to master them anytime that I've tried making them, even though they don't require any fancy ingredients, super fancy equipment. I mean, you need a thermometer of some kind, preferably a candy thermometer, I guess, but like you don't need anything fancy, and yet they have eluded me. Anybody can join that challenge if that's something that sounds interesting to you, and I do have a prize for that one as well at the end of the month. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who is listening. Please share this episode with somebody that you think might enjoy it. Sharing the show is probably the best way to get people to find out about it. If you are so inclined, please consider leaving a 5-star review for Bite Me the Show about edibles. Oh, and something new that's over on the website is I do have a new merch shop. It is brand new. You'll find it under the shop tab on the website. I've just started out with a few items, so check that out if you're interested. I think that's it for this week, my friends. I hope you will enjoy a relaxing morning sometime this week. And if you do, think about trying these high protein pancakes. And until next week, my friends, stay high.